Yohei, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me here, Daria.
So which cinematics have you worked on?
The first one I worked on was it's called Dragons. It's one of the Overwatch cinematics. Japanese two guys are like fighting in a scene like for about 7 minutes. That was the first show I worked on. And then after that, I worked on a lot of Overwatch cinematics and other World of Warcraft stuff. And Diablo 4, that was probably one of the newest one I worked on. Yes.
Can you talk about what inspired you as an animator?
Maybe like one of the movie influenced my animation is Tangled from Disney. Because that one is, I think the director was Glen Keane, and all the animation was drawn over by him and other probably great 2D animators. So most of the poses and the principles are there, and it's almost like a great textbook for animator. So I frame through most of the like whole entire movie to see what's going on in each moment, to learn some skills and then how to communicate with the audience with animation. So that one was the biggest it's like a great way to learn for me.
So far you've mentioned kind of feature films. So it sounds like feature film has been inspiration for you. Why did you choose to go into games animation?
Oh yeah, honestly, like I never thought I was gonna work for game company. It didn't mean that I didn't want to. More like I didn't really think about it, just because I didn't think I could. And then accidentally I worked for 2K games first. Even before that, I worked for like one small company called Polygon Entertainment, which is got bankrupted after I left. But 2K Games was introduced by one of the supervisor who was working there. He was my friend, and he introduced me at one of the animator position for in-game stuff. But at the moment, I was actually animating the in-game stuff. Although I learned, as I said, I learned animation from Pixar animators, so my knowledge and skills were more towards film stuff. So I kind of wanted to work on something like film related. So yeah, around the moment I thought I was gonna work for like somewhere like Pixar or Disney or something like that. But when I went to CTN, which is one of the illustrator and animators event, and then you can also find some job out there, and then some people have a booth to sell their art stuff. That was 2015, around the end of 15. So the Blizzard had a booth out there, and then normally like CTN, they have Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, those like film industries booths always out there, but somehow Blizzard had one too. And then the space was so small, it was just only one desk. And there's a recruiter out there. So you can talk to recruiters and show your stuff to get a job, but you never, I didn't expect there's a Blizzard one. So even, honestly, I didn't even know about Blizzard very well back then, but I knew them as Overwatch Cinematics and Hearthstone actually. Then Overwatch Cinematics just came out like about a few months before that, so I realized like this game company is something different from other game companies. They can do like Pixar movie quality stuff. So I'm curious. So I showed my demo reel to the recruiter, and by accident they were looking for cinematic animator. So he said like, oh, you're actually looking for cinematic animator, so I can show your stuff to supervisors. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. So, but at the moment I thought he was just saying it, it's like being nice. But after a week later, I got an email from Blizzard and asking like, you're interested to work for Cinematics office. So that was the opportunity I was able to get, and luckily I was able to get in. So then I started working with Blizzard. Although Blizzard Cinematics is kind of special because like there are like Blizzard has game team and cinematics team, but their building is almost like split different building. It's around the same area. It's in Sima Irvine, but it's not connected. And basically, Blizzard Cinematics office is their clients are game team. When game team wants to make new cinematics, they ask us to make new cinematics, and then we discuss with them about story and whatnot, and then we started making film of like 7 or 8 minutes of film for YouTube stuff as a marketing, which is basically Blizzard has a cinematic company inside, like in-house company. So for the reasons I've been working on only cinematic stuff since I started working for Blizzard. So what I meant is like I'm working for a video game company, but what I'm doing is in generally for more like movie stuff. Yeah, that's why I'm still here for 5 years.
How do you approach animation? How do you approach a shot as an animator? Do you like to act it out? Do you like to draw it out?
It depends on the shots, but mostly I try to shoot reference first. And rarely I draw like first because like I can draw, but I normally start thinking about posing and stuff after I started working on shot, like actually, when I place the animation blocking and stuff, and then I started posing with the thinking the pose. So the first is definitely shooting reference, for sure.
So you always shoot yourself reenacting the shot?
If it's like doable with my body, I would definitely do that. And like, because like whenever you shoot reference for your shots, even though you think you have like the solid image in your head, when you shoot a reference, you definitely find something new. So personally, like if I don't have to shoot reference, that would be awesome because like, that's so much easier. But I force myself to shoot reference at least like 10 or 15 before I started shot.
When animating, do you usually go pose to pose approach or straight ahead?
When I started working with Blizzard, at first, I was heavily like doing pose to pose only. So I wasn't really good at layered approach. Layered approach is basically more like you make a flow of the movement first, and you started adding like spine, head, arm, legs later on. So those approach, I do it now, but I had to learn it while I was working here. And yes, and definitely I'm more stronger with poses.
Why did you choose to switch then? Why did you choose to switch to the layered approach?
At first I was like, there's only two kinds of animator who can do pose to pose or layered approach, because layered approach was so hard for me. Although I realized sometimes like when you have to work on acting shot, the character stays in the same place and like bleeding and like keep talking but stops and like slight movement and but still around the same area. These kind of shot, when you work on these kind of shots, pose to pose was like a lot difficult to deal with it because they have to put so many poses but around the same place, and you have to track down the spacing of the nose and like body and everything. So it's always better to have nice smooth movement of your body first to work on the timing and everything with layered approach for acting shots to me. So I had to train myself to be able to do layered approach after that. Especially sometimes when you're real busy, like you have to keep, working on your shot to finish, like keep finishing the shots to shot to, go forward. For layered approach is definitely faster for those purposes. So there's definitely strong, strength about pose to pose and layered approach. So now I can do both. So I'm kind of mixing both. And sometimes I do like 100% pose to pose, 100% layered approach. But definitely that is layered approach learning is helping my work for sure.
When you talk about speed, how fast do you work usually with either approach?
That's a difficult question because like depends on the shots too.
If we're roughly saying like how many frames per week, like 100 frames in a week, 200, if it's say one character in a shot.
Well, Blizzard, like they are more like film company like Disney or Pixar, so they give us good amount of time for one shot. But yeah, definitely it depends on the character's number and how complex the shot is. So when I got very complex shot, probably Diablo 4, there was a bunch of characters, probably at least 8 characters that really I have to animate. And that was about like 3 seconds or something. No, I think that was 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, about a 5 second. And I got 55 days for it, which is 2 months.
Yeah.
That was a long shot to work on. But frame wise, it wasn't that long, although so much. It's almost like a La La Land. Character comes in here, and the character comes in. The camera moves this way, and this character has to go away this way and coming back from different direction or something. So it's almost like a dancing. That was taking so much time. Although, like, if I have to work on one shot, like the hand is falling and slam on the ground like this, it just death scene that one guy just died and the hand slams on the ground and rings comes off or whatnot. That one was done by like 10 minutes because like I had to do layered approach of like one just the axis of ty, and when I get the right animation of ty, I just needed to copy paste to rotation, and I just therefore like from wrist to the finger everything. So one carve on the graph editor did everything. So this is kind of one of the shot. The other approach is definitely useful because it's very physical based and there is no acting in it. There's no much choice because this guy is dead. So it's not like or something more like simply pulled by gravity. So this kind of shot, it's super easy to finish within 30 minutes. But if I was doing pose to pose only, I think the shot took way longer for polishing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of hard to say how long I take for animation. But I've been told I'm quite fast.
Do you have a preference of which kind of shots to work on? Do you like working on more physical things or more acting based
I
things?
personally like my strength is probably this physics shot action stuff, and I'm more comfortable and confident with working on action stuff. That's why like I get a lot of action shot here, just because I finish those quite quick in time. But I like working on acting shots. Definitely, it's challenging because it's not only physics based. You have to really think about what's the character's motivation and subtext and stuff. So yes, I enjoy doing acting shots more.
Blizzard is kind of a dream company for a lot of people to work at, right? But now, after 5 years, you decided that you're gonna leave it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
can
yeah,
you talk about why did you make that decision and what's next for you?
Honestly, like I didn't really think about like when to leave Blizzard when I started working here, because like Blizzard is definitely an amazing company and they pay you well, and then you get good amount of like hour time work, which is like not too much, not too less, but they don't do too much OT, and it's easy to communicate with everybody. There's not much hierarchy between like boss and supervisor and animators. People can speak up with their opinion. Generally, it's a great environment, and I don't have much complaint about it honestly. But yeah, I realized that like after I worked for 5 years, there is a two-way of living, right? It's like you stay, if Blizzard stays, being healthy, you can stay forever since I'm full time, as long as I'm doing my job. Okay, but in the case, I have to choose either like becoming like a lead and supervisor, whatnot, just climbing up a career, or staying just an animator as an artist, or leaving somewhere to try to do something. For the reasons like I didn't really have the motivation of becoming lead or supervisor at Blizzard. Well, because there's a great supervisors out there, and I don't know, I didn't have the motivation for it. But one day I was working on my own like toy figure stuff for selling this art piece at Designers Con. That was such a new thing for me because I'm an animator. I didn't do sculpting for a while. But when I did it, it was so much fun, and I spent so many hours inside of my garage working on my art piece. And that kind of reminded me like how fun to work on your own art stuff. So being an animator for 5 years made me like more like animation is as a more like a job to earn money and for living. So, but I was supposed to be more like enjoyment in animation as like art is supposed to be more enjoyment for myself, and that was kind of like not going away, but I needed some fresh air for it to motivate myself to even get better, be a better artist and animators.
So it became more of a craft than putting your artistic self into it.
Yeah. So and then like I realized that Blizzard is such a comfortable place, and it is almost like too comfortable for me. So in order to push myself to get to the next stage, I gotta, in a way, it's a way to say, but I have to make myself feel stressed more for living, for surviving. You know what I mean? Because like I came to US when I was 25, and I went to academy work. Back then, I was like trying so hard to get better because otherwise I can't get a job. you know. But when you feel like I'm comfortable, I can get paid every month, I'm in a safe place, that's nice. But with the extreme example, I can say I almost felt like I'm okay to die tomorrow, because it's like either me staying at the Blizzard for 30 years from now and I die out there, or me just dying tomorrow. It's basically the same. I mean, I might get better as an animator at Blizzard, but you know what I mean? It's like, what's the difference? It's like I'm staying same place and just doing the same job. It's fun, stable, but it's stable doesn't mean you're happy. That's what I meant. Yeah, stable means nothing dramatically changes, right? So that's why it's relieving, but you feel relaxed. But if you really want to stable, dying is also stable because nothing changes if you die. Does that make sense? It's kind of extreme,
That's a
but
very morbid
yeah.
way of looking at it.
So
But I get what you're saying.
I felt like I need to experience more stuff. If I'm living, if I'm not dead, I should just go out and like experience more stuff. So that's the part of the reason. That's probably the biggest reason why I'm leaving Blizzard.
And what is that next stage for you? What is the next thing you're going to be working on?
Biggest object is making a short film of a long story. Basically, I want to make a net series. As my generation, we say TV series because on TV show we saw some series of animated stuff. I grew up with anime, obviously, and I want to make one like that. So nowadays, it's Netflix or Hulu, those streaming site, people watch animated shows. So that's the thing I want to make. It's basically directing one TV show. And for that, I have to make one short film first to sell the idea.
Is it going to be 2D or 3D?
It'll be 3D because I'm a 3D animator. So I think I should go this way because I have many friends from the same industry. So we can work together for that one.
Anime is usually 2D, is that right?
Yes.
So you're going to take like that idea and make it 3D?
Pretty much like, anime is 2D and I grew up with those culture, but I learned animation from Pixar animators and I learned a lot of Blizzard as well. So basically my like culture I grew up with was 2D anime, and then my knowledge is from 3D. So I'm going to mix these two together to work on like my show. So I think it's gonna be very interesting just because like there is no way that I can avoid anime taste just because it's so like into my DNA. But I'm going to favor more American culture side for the show, which is it doesn't happen. It doesn't very happen. You don't see many times in anime because like whenever you see school in anime, that they're always a Japanese school. So that's not really relatable for American people. And that kind of part, I would definitely favor more American culture.
So what is going to be the Japanese part of it?
It's so hard to explain, but there's so many things that I really love about Japanese anime. And then one of my favorite show was Evangelion. And that show was not huge budget show, but they were doing such a great job back then. Just because of how they do layout, basically the storyboard of them is very original. Anime in general. For example, like in US, for the film study, where like film knowledge wise, like we always want to show characters' face when they are speaking, and that is not necessary for anime. Anime is basically as soon as they show who's talking to who, as long as the audience noticed that, they started shooting like hands sometimes and holding just coffee cup and just keep talking. You just see only hands in a coffee cup and just the coffee is just moving slightly, but just the keep composition is keep going. And that kind of shots, I love it just because it's very, I don't know, it's almost like you don't have to show everything, but audience knows what's going on. And then when you don't see many animation on the screen, but still composition is going on, you actually focus on the composition more to think about what the character is thinking and stuff. So that kind of approach is definitely more anime style, not the American animation style way. So this kind of Japanese way of cutting budgets um, and making some like unique style, um, those are the one that I really want to achieve.
Is that being done because of the budget cuts? Because it's
I think
cheaper?
so.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, it's like a Japanese anime evolved to a very unique way. As you probably know, anime and Japanese American cartoon looks so different, right? And the style and the story, how they write stories, different too. For some of the part of why anime, why they are so original are basically they had to cut a lot of budgets, and then they had to come up with the new idea of like how can we draw less but looks cool enough. So that's how they came up with like shooting some like it's showing only like back of themselves just keep talking and just the elevators keep moving but the character is not moving but just keep speaking forever. That kind of shots.
Yeah, it's interesting how those constraints sometimes can make you more creative, almost when
Exactly,
you're
yeah.
trying to find ways
Limitation.
to. But then I guess with 3D, those limitations don't exist in such ways.
Not much. Yeah.
But
I think just because like, Disney made most of the American cartoon culture, Disney always, try to do their best to animate every second, just keep moving and never stop and just, moving only mouth and stuff. So that's why it's almost like, animated stuff always has to keep moving. That's what they were, they've been doing. But I think there's some like spot that I can actually adapt Japanese style into, American cartoon style. And also, like one of my animation teacher from Academy of Art, her name is Beth. She said American cartoon industry definitely needs something like Akira, which is animated film, but not for only kids. For also, adults can watch and very realistic thing in it. That kind of stuff. We see those more in US nowadays, but still, I think animated film, either 3D or 2D, fully animated stuff tend to become more for kids. So yeah, I kind of want to make one for adults as well.
yeah, that's a good point. I feel like both in Japanese and European animation too, it's like it's more accepted to have animated films
Yeah.
for adult audience, but for American audience, it's kind of if it's animated, it's automatically for children.
Yes.
Kind
Yeah.
of thing.
for the reason I really like European animation too.
For someone like me who doesn't
Mhm.
watch anime, do you have like, okay, these are the things you have to watch to really understand
So
what anime is?
recommendation?
Yeah,
Um, that's
your amakase, if you will.
what kind of story do you like?
If it's like a foundational thing, it shouldn't be really, preference related, right?
Yeah, because like anime can be very dark too, but dark doesn't mean it's gore. More like my favorite things is definitely Neon Genesis Evangelion because
Okay.
it goes very deep into human relationship and mental illness as well. So
You're actually selling it well because I hear such different opinions about this show. Some people say that's total crap. Some people say it's the best thing in the world.
and Evangelion is like a definitely you see big robots looking one. So basically, people think it's like a battle action robot anime. That's what people think, but it is not at all, and it's very deep. And like if you so Evangelion is definitely for people like who experienced um this is very difficult to explain. But if you've never had a much issue for your family or friendship, anything, I think those people can't understand Evangelion very well. But
It's for broken, for
for
deep,
broken,
for
as
broken.
at least if you have like experience of like having a hard time with communicating with your family or some kind of human relationship, when you watch this show, you definitely feel the human side of character a lot. Yeah, so if you like philosophical stuff and more, what do you call those? Definitely, like detail of human personality. This show is so good.
Mhm.
Yeah, generally, I love philosophical stuff a lot.
Is your show going to be, or the short at first is going to also tap on those kind of philosophical ideas?
If I can, yeah, that's very difficult, stuff to do. But I don't. I try not to do it at the beginning, just because like when I focus on like let's make this show as meaningful, this kind of stuff. That's kind of the other way around. I almost feel like I think eventually my show is going to be the direction, going to towards those directions eventually by itself. I feel like just because of my personality. But first, I want to focus on entertaining people to make the show interesting enough to watch. So then I think after that, the story and character will um, eventually write, like shows those more philosophical part. I hope.
It's surprising for me to hear you talk about anime because I noticed that a lot, most animators I know, even the ones from Japan,
Mm-hmm.
when they work in United States, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of oftentimes they don't like anime, I guess because of the crude animation style.
Mm.
So it's interesting to hear that you still, even though after working in US for a long time, you still really like that
Yeah,
style as well.
definitely. Like there is a different type of appeal for anime and Pixar or like Disney style. Those two animation style is completely different to me. So there is no way to compare these two. And then like people who like Western style cartoon shows, criticizing Japanese anime as like lower quality. That's actually to me the very old mindset. They're not really open minded for it because like the material is completely different. Both animation, it's same material, but genre, I guess, but it's the existence was it's those two are completely different. And also like even American cartoon, there's a very badly animated one too. Like for example, X-Men TV show. If you watch it now, the animation is quite bad. The pose to pose and spacing, everything is like all over the place. But you know, that's a part of American animation. And when you look at Japanese anime, some of them are very polished, but some of them are very poorly polished, as well. So there's always good and bad, but there's a different charm in these two sides. So if you choose right one, it always, it is amazing to watch either way. That's my opinion.
If you had to pick one favorite Japanese film and one
Mhm.
favorite American animated film, what would those two be?
If I choose a favorite film, as a film, like, feature film length,
Mm-hmm.
Japanese anime is Mind Game. This is my favorite.
Mind
Honestly,
Game?
Mind Game is my like all-time favorite, including the American stuff, including live action. Like this is I think an hour to 30 minutes to 2 hours show. It's Japanese anime, but it's very philosophical. Oh, but also it's very comedic. It doesn't like teaches you like like this is what you need to think about. More not like that. More like it goes like comedy and the speed is crazy. Energy is like almost like keep running all the time. But you learn a lot of stuff. Basically, like if I explain very simply, this film teaches you like how important appreciation is. If you appreciate your life, you can see everything in light color. But if you don't appreciate, you see black and white all the time. An American one, um, animation-wise, Tangled was like definitely like one of the most polished film for sure.
Oh, really? Even opposed to their later things like
Um,
Frozen
Animation-wise,
and
yeah,
yeah. Oh, okay.
but that's not my favorite film, honestly. Because I mean, it's good film, but story-wise, it's not that like moved my heart or something. Hmm, that is a difficult question. But I grew up with Toy Story, and I still love Toy Story 1, even if they look not so good nowadays. But animation was definitely good enough for back then, and definitely like it's good enough to entertain everybody. So that was definitely a legend film to me still. Yeah.
Is the style of 3D animation in Japan different from 3D animation in the United States, or is that kind of blurred?
Some of them are different. It's like only different stuff the Japanese industry make is they heavily difference Japanese 2D style. Almost like when you look at it, you can't even tell it's 3D. That's something they are spending so much, years to figure out how to make 3D film look like 2D. It's at first it's almost like what's the point of making 3D animation with that? Because if it looks like 2D, why don't you do it in 2D? But now since they went so far with it, it started having some original look with it and something completely different from 2D or 3D, but it's 2D look, kind of 3D. One of the biggest thing about Japanese difference between the Japanese 3D animation and United States 3D stuff is when 3D animation came out, Disney and the United States way was easier to transfer from 2D to 3D, just because Disney always animated like full frame, almost like a 24 frame per second. It's like they put so much drawing in key betweens. So that was way easier to transfer to 3D because like in 3D you have to animate almost like 24 frame per second. Not have to, but just that's the main you know way to do. But with 3D animation compared to 2D, you see more information in the screen. Lots of information. It's more close to the real in live action, right? Just because you see the depth. With the 3D animation, if you put like 15 frames per second and stuff, it's hard to look at because of the information is so much that like few frames are not good enough to communicate with the audience. So 24 frames per second is definitely a better solution for 3D animation compared to less frame. For the reasons, if you animate 3D one with the look of like general 3D animation look, more like a Disney or Pixar looking one, you need at least 24 frames per second. But that is too much for Japanese anime style, because Japanese anime involved for less frame for cutting the budgets, and eventually become more unique looking and more, exaggerated style. But those style are not good for 24 frames per second. So that's why a lot of 2D animators in Japan, they stay being 2D animators because they don't want to do 3D because it's completely different. And then the knowledge of animation was very hard to transfer from 2D to 3D. I think that's part of the reason why like they're going towards making like 2D looking 3D a lot. So honestly, when they try to animate 3D stuff in Japan, they weren't very good at it because most of the animators out there weren't really animator, more like a generalist that they had to do animation for 3D, and they didn't even want to be animator. That's why like the level wasn't very good at the beginning. But nowadays they started getting better just because like like there's some online animation school like I do, and then we're making the animators better animators nowadays. So yeah, started changing slightly a bit.
Nice. Well, thanks. Those are pretty much all my questions. I think this was great, and good luck with your with both your short and the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll keep work on it hard.